Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I am so delighted to have our guest, Autumn Shields, with us today. She's an author who wrote the book "Living Your Life Living Your Life Alive," which is so in alignment with what we do here and what we talk about. So I can't wait to dive in a little bit more about that philosophy. She's a speaker and she's also a serial entrepreneur who has created $1 million success lines. Welcome to the show, Autumn.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited. Okay, so for those people that do not know you, just give a quick, backstory about how you came to be where you're at today.
Awesome. Well, my first career back in my 20s, you go to college and you find that career that you think you want to be in. And I knew from a very small child that I wanted to be a victim advocate for law enforcement. So when I was in Denver, Colorado, I graduated and very early in my 20s started serving in law enforcement and different police departments serving crime victims. And I loved what I did. I was one of those people that never needed an alarm clock. I always was excited to wake up to do what I thought I was put on earth to do. And I loved it. Little did I know in my mid 20s that money actually helps you create things in life, which I was making almost nothing. It was almost a volunteer job at the point, but I just started thinking, I'm a very optimistic person. So I kept thinking, next week's going to be better. Next month's going to be better. Next year is going to be better. But I knew I was living paycheck to paycheck. And I knew something had to change. I never knew that something would come in the form of a network marketing or social marketing company, but it did. And so luckily I was able to tip my toe into that and look around. And I started seeing people that were living life a little different way. They were loving life, but they saw choices and freedoms, and they were edifying each other and really just supporting each other, especially a lot of women. And I was not used to women around me supporting each other. And it was a very different environment to step into. And then as I grew in that business, I've actually been in that business 18 years now. I can't believe it. So I must have been like 12 when I started it, for 18 years. And then from that point on, I actually was able, because of that business, I was able to move to Maui, Hawaii, where I just felt like I was supposed to really, I'll talk about the nudges in a little bit, I guess, but through that, I started another Hawaiian tourism company, like a really Hawaiian cultural company that had a nonprofit piece to it, serving high-risk kids. And while I was over there, I thought I was supposed to be doing that. All of a sudden, a book came. I felt like it was just downloaded into me. And I was like, I cannot write a book. I cannot hold still long enough to write a book. But the book came out and it did its thing. And through that, just a whole Living Your Life Alive, really just program and mission came out of that. And so it's been really fun to play with that and build a community of like-minded people that are really desiring to live their life fully alive.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many nuggets I want to pick apart there, but I want to talk about this. Like you went into an MLM company, and as you have probably seen, that's not always an easy place to land, right? So how were you so successful? Like how, you know, like what was tell me a little bit about that, like how you were able to build that company.
Well, first of all, I was still working full time. I didn't make the jump because I didn't trust that it was going to be strong enough
Okay.
to, carry me financially. So I worked full time. I was raising 4 children at home. I did not have time to start a business. And so for people that, I think a lot, especially women, are scared to think the word start a business because you think you have to do it on your own. And it gets overwhelming. So a lot of people I really think are just overwhelmed with the word starting a business.
Yeah.
And so they just don't do it. Because I thought about starting a whole bunch of different businesses, but I think in business, so many times people think I don't have enough time to start a business or I don't have money to start a business. And you just get overwhelmed.
Agreed.
And then you just stop. So for me, and then everyone was making fun of me. So, back then it wasn't as popular of a industry to step into. And I was working
Yeah.
around a whole bunch of male cops and everyone was making fun of me. And I thought, you know what? Nobody else is paying my bills. So I
Yeah.
can't really care about their opinions.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when
That's
I
that's so
landed,
true.
I felt like when I landed in this business, I was just, I think it was, honestly, I'd like to like say some characteristics of me that like made it successful in the in the beginning. I think it's because I didn't take it seriously. And I would never give that advice to somebody else. I mentor and coach people all the time and I tell them, you have to take this business seriously. And I don't mean that I didn't take it seriously, like actually put my feet to the fire, but I was just so passionate about sharing the products with people, and actually serving people that I wasn't too serious on the business side, meaning I didn't overthink the business side of it. I
That's a
was
great
just
point,
serving.
yeah.
And
I
so
think
it's not, I didn't take it seriously. It's just, I wasn't worried about having an exact business card, done or doing everything perfectly right on the
yeah,
business side. So that's probably the biggest thing is I just started having fun serving people. And then secondly, as I was able to lock arms with some people that were just amazing mentors that had gone before me. And I learned early on in life that mentorship is so important, to find
yeah,
somebody that's a little further ahead than you are and lock arms with them if they're able, if you're able to. And
yeah.
so you're not having to fail forward as much, but you can really just lock arms with them and, ride on their coattails of their success, of what they've already known and learned.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And I agree with you. Like when you're in that place and space, and I think you're right. Like so many times we go, oh, we don't have this. I don't have this. This is not perfect. This is not. And you're right. If you just show up and say, okay, how can I serve, and how can I, be there, be a resource, and there was some safety net, right? Like you had a full time job, that there was some level of safety there, and I'm
Yes.
a big believer in doing those do starting a business in a smart and healthy way. Like when I started my business, the brick and mortar business, I had zero in my account, but I had staged it where I had a 30-day wiggle room. Because I like left the other position and we got paid monthly. And so I had like a 30-day like supply, right? Like so I literally started with zero in my account. But gosh, that made that turned the hustle on for me. And I'd be
Yes.
like, okay, I got 30 days. Like we got to make this up happen. Now, looking back, I would have done things differently. I think we could all agree that we'd probably do things differently. But um
But you have to, I mean, you can do it differently, but the fact is that you did it. And that's
I
the
know,
biggest
right? It's
thing
like,
is like somebody would advise you, you should have 90
yes.
days comfort zone. You should have a year. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Point is
Yeah.
you had to do that for yourself to like do
Yeah.
the hustle.
Yeah.
So
Well, it was interesting because my husband has been supportive 1000% in all the crazy ideas that I have. And one day I came to him and I'm like, I feel very called to do this. And I am so scared. And he goes, and he's just so funny because he's like, I always joke that he's like my kite holder. I'm the kite, da, 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 da. And he is the kite holder. And I went to him and I said, I am just terrified. Like, I don't think I can do this. And he says, what's the worst thing that can happen? He's like, you fall on your face, you go get a job. And I go, oh, when you put it like that, that seems silly. Like, what am I making the big deal about? Like, and it was like that
yes,
simplicity of it was like, you fall on your face, you go get a job. And I'm like, okay.
that's
I was
right.
like, and I didn't like, I just always had like, okay, if I fail, I'll just go get a job. Like it wasn't meant to be, but it turned out to be this whole new thing and so many doors open. And you're right. Like you just briefly talked about those nudges and those profound nudges that we hear and listen to. So what was one of those nudges for you that came to you?
I think my main message in living your life alive is, and whether it's in business, rather it's being a mom, rather it's being a partner, whatever it is to fully live your life alive, is to really identify those nudges in your life. Like, what
Mm,
are they? Are they audible? Are they like feel like a brick, hit you over the head? Like, what is that nudge? But to me, a nudge is something that is really not necessarily on our radar, right? Like I have ideas all the time, but to me, those are my ideas. A nudge is more
yeah.
like outside of myself. It's more divine. It's more of like the bigger
Mhm.
picture of serving, and more of that ripple effect. And so when I've had those nudges in my life, the first one I ever felt, I was in eighth grade, and it was clear as day. I was nudged, and I met a victim advocate through trauma. I had a friend. She was in eighth grade, and she committed suicide. Well,
Mm.
this police department had a victim advocate that responded and to talk to us kids. And I remember right then and there saying, that's what I'm supposed to do. I didn't even know what she was called. I didn't know a title. I couldn't like look it up in college of what to be.
Oh my
But I was
goodness.
mentored by her. I reached out to her and, I followed that nudge. And when you feel like you're
Mm.
following the nudges, sometimes it doesn't make sense. It's like doing a dot to dot, like a little dot to dot where you sit down and you think it's like a dinosaur.
Yes.
You're like, that looks like a dinosaur. And you start going, you're like, that is not a dinosaur. That is a sunflower. And so,
Yeah.
but when you step into that place, things don't always make sense. And for me, it was always scary because I don't, I didn't have the resources. And so like when I was working in law enforcement, and then I thought, oh, this is my career. And then I was nudged to get in an MLM, nudged meaning it would not go away. Like I was doing it and I was
Yeah.
serving, but I was like my title, I was attached to my title. I was like,
Yeah.
that's not the plan. That's not what I
Yeah.
think I'm supposed to be doing. And I was nudged. And I always feel like nudges are like, it's like God calling. I'm like, I think you have the
Yeah.
wrong number.
I
Like,
know,
no, this is the
right?
wrong number.
Yeah, even like, so I have to tell you this, totally side note. You and I are like, our lives were very similar. My transformation, the nudge that I got was in 6th grade when I'm sorry, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was working as a peer counselor, and I
Oh,
had a
mhm.
5th grader tell a 6th grader that she was going to commit suicide, and we intervened, and I believe we saved this girl's life. I mean, she was able to
Yeah.
get hospitalized and get resources, and that experience. I was like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going into counseling. Like, this is what I want
Yes.
to do, right? Like, so we have a. I love that. I
And I
love
was a
that.
peer counselor too. And that's how I ended up,
Ah,
same exact process. That was
mm,
exactly how I was attached to that mentor. And then, as I feel like the nudges have come up about and I fight them, I'll
yeah.
preach all day about follow the nudges. Like that's my tagline, follow the nudges, but I fight the
I
nudges.
so hear you on that. I so hear you because, like, even like I had some. I don't know, probably about 10 years ago, I had this really deep nudge to go into like this other company talking with Teri. And I was like, no, like they're like, write a book. And I'm like, no. And I'm like digging my heels long and hard. I'm like, bar. And I feel like I was like digging my heels in. And then all of a sudden they're like,
Yes.
we're still going to push you. And so my heels are dug in to the surface and they're like, and they're still pushing me, right? Like, I'm like, okay, okay, I got it. I got it. Don't ruin the heels. Don't ruin heels.
That's right.
But you're right, like, it's one of those things, I think you said that so well, it's one of those things that you can't turn off. Like, you
Mm-mm.
can try to hang up that phone and say, "Sorry, wrong number," but it just keeps calling back, and it just will continue to persist until we, you know, step into it, and we actually do what we're being called to do, and so that's so profound, so
Yes. And stepping into it, once you just make the step, it doesn't have to be a huge step, just a step saying, okay, I'm going to learn to trust this process, play with it. So if
yeah,
you're stuck or you're feeling that nudge, play with it. Just step in a little bit. It doesn't mean you have to like give up a title, give up a job, give up a relationship.
yeah,
It doesn't mean you have to jump from one thing to the other. It just says, go play with it, go explore it. What if I could do something fun with this? What
yeah,
if it does make an impact? I remember thinking, you want me to like go from where I believe I was making a huge difference being a victim advocate, and you want me to go like sell skincare and health and wellness products like that? I don't understand the impact. Like I want to be a person of impact. It's a totally different
yeah,
impact in different people's lives. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. And so you have to learn to trust, because I know that if it's a true nudge, that if you make the steps, just like you said, people, you might feel pushed from behind, but the thing is it's like all the resources appear. And that's what I've learned, is that this
mhm,
person just walks up and makes a phone call and says, hey, I'd like to partner with you. Somebody else just runs into you.
yeah.
I was on the phone trying to book a rental car in Hawaii, and I ended up talking to my publishing coach for my book. It was at like a wrong number. Like, how does that happen? And
I
so
love it.
it's
Ah,
those resources always will appear for you. And just, it's easy to look back and just be like, have fun with it. But when you're in it, sometimes it does feel terrifying.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think I love this piece that you're talking about without really talking about it, but it's like having that playfulness, having that curiosity, inviting that piece into it because and you're a prime example because I see you as business savvy, smart, educated, and yet you didn't go into this company having all of that business acumen. Like
Mm-mm.
you built that over time and you were just following the nudges, you were following your intuition, you were following that path, if you will, and the resources appeared and it you are a great example of living your life alive, taking trips, enjoying your family, not working all the time, not working those 80,
Hmm.
I remember being into, the first business that I had, and it was like, working 80 hours a week and evenings and weekends, and it just was so insane. But once you learn to follow those nudges and you step into it, you can work smarter, not harder, right? And you can
Yes.
allow yourself to almost reap the rewards in a lot of ways of, just trusting that.
Yes.
But
And
that's
somebody
not
told
always an
me,
easy.
no, somebody told me earlier on, whatever your career you're in, look at somebody that's been in there 10 years longer than you. What is their life like? And I remember in my 20s
Mm,
looking at people in law enforcement that were like 10, 15 years in. Thank goodness we have law enforcement. Thank goodness they serve. I am totally
yes.
pro law enforcement. Thank
Yeah.
goodness. And I love that field. But I was like, I can't, I am working 60 hours a week because I'm 20 and I have the energy. I don't want to work 60 hours a week when I'm 40 and 50 and 60 years old. And
Yeah.
so I just knew that something had to change, but I also knew that nothing was going to change unless I started to change as a person. And I knew that I couldn't grow, anything that was bigger than my knowledge base. So I threw myself into
Yes.
self-development books and leadership books because leadership has always been something that I've been involved with and curious about, and I threw myself in the leadership book so I could become a better leader, and as a business owner and as a mentor.
I love that. What would you say for listeners listening here, and what other, no matter what the area of their business or in their life that they're in, maybe they're at the beginning stages or middle stages, or even like, selling the business, or, moving on and going into a transition, like what is some of the maybe one or two top pieces of advice or nuggets or things that maybe you've been taught that you were like, ah, this was a game changer for me in my life?
First of all, don't ever take advice from somebody more messed up than you.
Touche, touche. Like
Yes,
that is so
they can be
there's
friends and in
Mhm.
that area. So, like,
Yeah,
for instance, like, I really respect the opinion of, let's say, my father. Okay, and I would go to him for almost anything. But if he's never been in my, and he's a business owner, but if he's never been in my specific area,
yeah.
that's the second piece I would say, is that even if he's not more messed up than me, in life in general. But when you're needing something, like, it's like I wouldn't go to him for fitness advice because he's not a personal trainer, right? So
Right.
find somebody. Just don't go around asking and talking to everybody about your business. Make sure you're being very protective of your eyes and your ears and your business. I don't care if it might be somebody that you're living with, right? It might be your partner that doesn't really understand your business.
Yeah,
Go to somebody that is really understanding of your whatever you're needing that advice from, or that business or a mentorship, and make sure that they're a little further ahead than you, right? We want
yeah,
to get uncomfortable a little bit. We don't want to be the smartest person in the room, right? We want to, be uncomfortable, and find those people to really, it's like going to the gym. I don't want to I want to try to find somebody that I can, like, run against that's a little bit better than me. So I step it up a little bit.
yeah,
And you have to get uncomfortable. I mean, building any businesses, you're going to be uncomfortable, and there's no arrival point. There's no
yeah,
title. You can be
yeah,
CEO, or I can be top 1% of the business. Or in my business, it doesn't matter. You can't. You're still need to get uncomfortable and continue to grow, because as
yeah,
soon as you stop, that's the scary territory. But um, as in, ultimately you have to believe in yourself, and you don't have to believe in yourself up front. None of us, I think, are like, I'm a 10 every day out of my belief. We all slip, but we all need to, like, pour into that, because belief is everything. Belief has a
yeah,
sound, and believing in yourself is the most important thing.
yeah. And I agree with you. Like having those mentors that are going to mentor you through, like and different areas. I probably have right now, currently, I probably have four mentors in different areas and different, pieces of that. And you're right. And when you get really clear, I'm always talking about like setting those intentions. When you start to set those intentions, you start to gravitate and you start to pull in, if you will, those people, those resources that you were talking about with more ease. And it's like they just show up. Like literally, I was joking the other day, like I met this guy about a year ago. I literally like I almost ran him over in the hallway. Like our office doors are like a
Yes.
foot apart. And I like did this like matrix thing to like keep from smacking and running him flat over. Right. But that started a conversation, and he's become like this incredible mentor to me, and it's just been fantastic, and we may even be doing some collaboration.
Yeah.
um,
So just be
um,
open to it. Like, what
I
else is
know,
possible?
yeah, and I'm like, he's like, we're actively, seriously talking about another book, and I'm like, oh dear, I told myself I was
Mhm.
only doing like one, and now we're like into like multiples here, like, so, but it's just it's powerful, and like how we can get into that place and space of just creating those people that were going to come in and support us in whatever way. So mentorship and making sure that you're taking advice from or information from someone who is 5, 10, 20 steps ahead of you is gold in the same industry or similar boat
Mhm.
as you, is powerful. And then you also mentioned believing in yourself and whether you have to kind of, attach to someone else that believes in you for a little bit to get your
Yes.
your understanding and then to, launch into that. But and here's the thing with the brain is always seeking out evidence. And so the more that we can allow our brain to find the evidence that's supporting saying, hey, I got this, I just did this, and making sure that we're writing down those successes, whether they're small or large, like looking at that as some of the evidence. What else would you share with our listeners as far as like what's been, all right, I actually let me change that question a little bit. Like when you talk about living alive, right, which is just beautiful because I feel like there's a lot of zombies among us
Yeah.
that just are going
Yes,
through the
exactly.
motions, right? And so, living alive, I mean, how would you, I don't know. How would you share a nugget or a tip of just like truly stepping into and living fully alive in this lifetime?
I love that you said zombies because people are like, what does that actually mean? I'm like, all right, not from now on, I'm just going to say it's opposite of being a zombie. But I think that when you are there, like there was a time in my life I was that, and to me, it's about being conscious. But I think that a way to start that journey, if, yeah, it sounds great. Like who doesn't want to live alive? Like, it sounds great, but what really does, what is that? What does that place look like? The first thing is
Yeah.
to recognize your thoughts. And just, I love that you brought up that we're always seeking evidence because a lot of times our thoughts are just not doing they're not living, they're not conscious. We are just literally playing in life like
Yeah.
we're just zombies, we're walking around
Autopilot.
life. And
Yeah.
to
It's
stop
autopilot. Yeah.
and think about your thoughts and think about intention and think about really what is it that makes you feel alive. And sometimes people don't even remember what that is. You can ask them what their favorite food is, you can ask them, but actually what makes you feel like excited to wake up in the morning? What like gets you all like, I mean, just being on this podcast today, I love it. I know. So that makes me feel alive.
Yeah.
When I feel like I'm impacting other people, when I'm sharing with other people or inspiring other people, because that's what I believe I'm put on earth to do. So are you in that place where you feel like, to me, it's about getting that tingle in your, being of saying, oh my gosh, I really feel like I'm living my life alive and having choices and saying, you know what, I'm not going to work, 10 hours today. I'm going to go out on the boat for a little bit. Or I love work and I'm going to work 12 hours today. But whatever it
Yeah.
is to feel that really, I think the start of it is just to stop and think about your thoughts. Like, where are you? And just take inventory really of your life and saying, you know what, I'm feeling really alive at work, but like the rest of my life is getting the leftovers. Like I don't feel alive anywhere in the rest of my life, or vice versa. Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, everything's great, but like I go to work and I just feel like air leaves me. And I always feel like if you're really feeling alive, you should feel like you walk and you feel like air's coming into you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what, it's kind of like a tool you can use of like, when are you really feeling alive? Not what you're supposed to be doing or what you should be doing. Those are bad S
Agreed.
words.
Yeah.
But really what makes you feel like you come alive as a person.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I don't know if it's been your case, but I know from my case, when I ask people like, what do you love? What do you they always tell me what they don't love or what they don't, like what makes you happy or what makes you excited. They always tell me what they don't like. Well, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't know that. And it's almost like we're conditioned to kind of see the negative over that, right? And so I've been consciously saying, no, 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 like, no, like what brings you joy? What brings you happiness? Because I agree with you. Like when you tap into that, and I don't know if this has been the case for you, but do you get? Because I show up with my energy. I show up with, and I've been tagged, the Energizer Bunny,
Hmm.
and they're like, how do you have energy all the time? And I'm like, I don't know. Like I feel like I'm doing the things that fuel me. So I'm being fueled throughout the day. So this conversation,
Right.
it's like this fuels me. So I'm gonna be living on a high. Thank you, Autumn, probably for the rest of the day, right? Like, but it brings me joy, right?
Yes.
And then it's like, oh, so I'm very strategic with what gets on my calendar. I'm very protective of my calendar because I only
Yes.
allow on my calendar what's going to continue to bring joy to me? I mean, there's occasionally things that are business related that I do have to take care of that are not joy filled, but I'm like, okay, can I outsource this? Can I send this to somebody else? Because right now I had this project and I'm like, oh, I'm sending it to my virtual assistant. I'm saying, I don't really care for this. It's not really in her job title either, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to first see if she'll do it. If not, then I'll take it back, right? But I'm going to look at my resources first to say, okay, but I'm very protective of like what is bringing me joy, what is bringing me, what's going to fill me up. And there's very little that gets on my calendar that is not something that I'm like, yay, I'm excited about this, right?
That's so great. You can recognize that and are protective of that because I'm a doer, so I will just do. Like, I can
Yeah.
do it. I can do it. I can do it. And I'm like, oh, why pay somebody else? I can do it. And I've learned to outsource because that
Yes.
energy just doesn't feel good. And if it
Hmm.
doesn't feel good, it's not going to go out good, and that energy doesn't come back good. So,
Exactly.
it's
Oh, that's so
making that
good.
fun. Yes, it's making that fun. And just I don't like the techie stuff and the system stuff and the day to day stuff. But I have an assistant who loves it and it
Yes.
fuels her. She loves it and she loves like sending stuff back to me and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Exactly.
you're amazing. Everyone has their own thing that they should be in, and so we don't feel bad that you don't like certain things. Just be protective over it.
Yeah, and when you're doing this, I just think that this is beautiful because if you're doing something that's not filling you and it fills her and she's like, "Ah, systems, strategy, da 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 da." I mean, you're just giving her the greatest gift, right? Like you're filling her up too by
Yes,
not taking it on. So it's a win-win if we look at it that way.
yes,
You're filling her and you're being filled by that process by not doing it, right? Because it's not going to give you joy and it's going to you're right. I love that you said that if you're doing it and then it goes out right energetically, like I always think about like energetically, like what am I putting out there, like and sometimes this is so funny. Sometimes when we do like a group mailing or I mean a big mailing or something, I tell them I don't, my staff will like prep the mailing, but I'm like, don't send it out. I want to send it out. And so what I do is I take the group mailing and I like put it in my hands and I like send love with it. And I'm like, okay, whoever, and I do this like a little process, right? And then I'm like, okay, now we can bless and release into the world. But
yes.
it's really important, like what
That's
energy you're
awesome
putting on outside of the thing. Not that my staff doesn't have great energy. They do, but I just wanted to be like, I'm gonna
for
like
you.
hold
Yeah.
space for you. Like I'm just gonna be like make my kind of like my stamp on it energetically and be like, okay, whatever what is it that they need to hear, see, or feel in order to feel happiness, joy, connection when they receive this, right? And so it's a silly little practice, but it's like my little ninja.
But it
Right.
is, it's such a good point because I tried to do a newsletter the other day on Canva, completely messed it up, emailed it out. I emailed it out as a test. Like it was awful. Like I went to clients that it shouldn't have, like it was just a mess. And the thing is, I got so flustered instead of just stepping back and realizing I messed up the intention of this, the energy is already messed up. To step back, I just kept pushing myself through dredging through it.
Mhm.
Not a good feeling. It didn't save me any time. It wasted my time
Yeah.
and it didn't go where it was supposed to go. It didn't do, it didn't serve its purpose. And I was like,
Yeah.
forget it. Forget the tech side of stuff. Just like do, connect. And so what I try to do is if I do have to do some stuff that I'm not like fond of, I always think number one, I want what's my intention, but also thinking about the end result. The end
Yeah.
result is going to be this person's going to have a different life because of this. This person, whatever I'm
Yeah.
doing, is going to be who am I impacting? And then I really try to stay focused on that because me thinking about impact it fills me up. So I can sit there and do emails all day long if I'm thinking I'm serving people versus
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have 219 emails I got to deal with. So it's staying focused on that, end result.
Yeah, and it's that perspective shift, right? It's that, instead of looking at this as a chore, it's looking at it as, this is how I'm serving. This is how I'm adding support. This is how I'm making an impact in the world. And so I always look at like that perspective shift is like, okay, I can look at it this way and that feels one way, but if I look at it this way, this feels another way, right? So if
Yes.
we have choice. I'm always saying, like, let's choose the one that's going to fill us. Let's choose the one like you said, that makes us feel alive, like that brings joy to us. So,
And we're not taught why to work. We're not like in school, a teacher doesn't come
yeah.
along and saying, why are you trying so hard on this paper? Or why are you not trying so hard on this paper?
Mm,
We just have consequences. Or we're trying to get a great,
yeah.
great grade. Well, why are you trying to get a good grade? We never ask like why we're doing things. We're just taught we got to work, we got to turn in homework, we got to
Yeah.
work, we got to turn in homework. So like I just get in that work mode and the, there's no why behind it. So it's just silly. It's
I
silly
love
work.
it. Oh my gosh, we could have a whole conversation on
Yes.
just that statement right there. Maybe I'll have you back on the show and we'll do a deep dive on like that piece because it's so yummy. Okay, so I want people to be able to reach out to you, connect with you. This has been awesome. We're definitely going to have you back on the show, and we're going to have another conversation here.
Thanks. Yes, I'd love to
So
have you too.
yeah, let's do this. So let's. How do people get a hold of you? How do they contact with you? Make contact with you?
So the easiest way is my site. Of course, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all over, and love to connect with people socially too. But you can go to autumnshields.com or livingyourlifealive.com, whichever one you want to remember. And I actually have a free guide on 7 steps of how to live your life fully alive. It's super easy to download and just start you on that journey of really focusing on your thoughts and questions, and kind of just take you through that process of what that actually looks like. So that's that. And then I also have a podcast I'm excited to have you on as well,
Yeah.
called the Living Alive Show, where we just have a lot of thought leaders in the same area of people that are living their lives alive like you are, and people that are like, how do I get there? And
Yeah.
what are some tips and tricks on that? So, but the focus is definitely on living your life alive, and or obstacles that are really standing in your way. Things like grief or forgiveness or whatever it may be, to really, that people know that they want to get to that other place, they just can't. And so we hopefully have a lot of tools there from different thought leaders. And then we have a Facebook group that is, again, it's just a conversation about the mission to wake up and connect with other people that are living their life fully alive. And that's just Living Your Life Alive Facebook group. So that is that. And then you can connect, and on that site, you can also ask to connect with me, and we can also do a free consultation at any time, just one-on-one with anybody. So
Awesome. All right, we're going to put all that information into the show notes. It is a delight to have you here today with us, and
I will be on a high all day today too.
I know. Let's see. Look at that. This is the contribution. I hope that everyone who's listening takes a little nugget or just the essence of the energy that was played out today, right? And I'm
Yes,
gonna
I wish I could just keep working all day and keep you on my
I
screen
know.
all
Let's
day.
just do this. Let's do this. You know what's so funny? Like, so total side note. I have had some of my greatest friendships come out of podcasting, and so I'm
Yes,
just gonna
it's
say,
fun.
like anything is possible, right? The doors start to open up. So it's so beautiful. So you are
Yes,
a
thank
beautiful
you.
spirit inside and out,
Thank
and
you.
so grateful to connect with you. And I wish you all the best in your next, phase in the next
Thank you.
2021 here. And
Yes, you
I
too.
will be in touch. All right.
Yes, happy
Take care.
holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.